For the lapped zip sample, you need 2 pieces of calico about 40 centimeters by about 7 centimeters. And what I've done is I've overlocked the edges where the zip is going to be inserted. And you also need a zipper foot, a 25 centimeter dress zip, and just a machine set up with straight stitch. So what we're going to do first is mark where our zip is going to end on our fabric so we know where to stitch our seam. So if I pop my zip, so the end is at the end of my, oops, can't really see it, the end of my fabric. And then what we want to do is we want to finish our seam just below the zip end here, that metal part. So I'm just going to do a little mark below that point with lead pencil. Now for a lapped zip, you need 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. Usually we work with 1 centimeter in class, but for this we're doing 1.5 to allow enough material to make the lap on the zip. So with my mark here, I'm going to stitch this small section, which is the seam where the zip won't be inserted. So I'm just going to make sure my edges are nicely lined up. Pop it under the machine, line it up with a 1.5, which is here. And make sure I'm starting right at that mark I've done and just stitching that seam. The reverse at the start and then at the end as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to iron this seam allowance open, but before I do that I want to mark my 1.5 here at the end. So the way I'm going to do that is back at my machine, because I actually just don't have a ruler on me. I'm going to put it up against 1.5 line and draw a mark there. That's going to help me when I need to iron this, and I'll just make sure it's the same on the other side as well. So now we can go iron that open. So at the ironing board I'm going to open the fabric and I'm going to iron this seam allowance here open, and I'm going to continue ironing that at that 1.5 width. And this is going to create a space for our zip to go. Now I can use my marks at the end here as a guide, so I can fold back there and iron that side. And then again on this side, fold back at my 1.5 and iron the other side. Make sure it looks even. To me this is slightly off, so I'm just going to fix that up. And then to me that looks pretty even. So turn the iron off and head back to the machine. So back at the machine, I've got my fabric prepared, my seam here, my opening for my zip. So how this is going to work is the zip goes underneath. This side gets sewn close to the zip teeth, and this side creates the lap like that and gets sewn on this side of the teeth. So we're going to work with this side first. So we need to prepare our machine. Just going to open that by taking off our presser foot. Now there's a little button at the back here, and popping on our zipper foot. Now our zipper foot can go on the left or the right side. It depends which side the teeth are going to be on, the zipper teeth, when you're sewing. So for this part, The zipper teeth are going to be on the left, so I need to pop it on the left. So I'm just going to line it up and click my foot down and pop my threads at the back. So make sure you're just going to hold this in place. You can pin this if you want, but I prefer not to pin because I feel like it takes a lot of time. Okay, and I'm going to line up the inside of this zipper foot here with the fold of my fabric. Now it may not want to move at the start, so I'll grab my threads and I'll toe tap and pull that fabric through using the threads as an anchor. So as I go along, I'm keeping that fold nice and close to the teeth and lining up my edge of my presser foot up against that fold. If you've got it in the right position, it should be nice and close to the teeth. That's really important. Now, we're going to encounter a problem with our zipper head in a moment because it's going to create a bulky section here. What we need to do is put our needle in, lift our presser foot up, and you should be able to zip that zip head out the way. And then you can keep sewing. Just make sure you put your presser foot back down. Stitch all the way to the bottom of that gap. Now I've probably left too much room. You can see here there's a bit of a gap here, but as long as you catch the bottom of the zip, it shouldn't be a problem. But ideally the metal end would sit down a bit lower. Just means my measurements were slightly out. Alright, when you get to the bottom of the zip opening, do a teeny tiny reverse and take your work out and give it a trim, and you should have that zip attached nice and closely to the zipper teeth. Just trim your threads. Okay, so the next section is creating the lap. So again, my zipper teeth are going to be on the left hand side. And what I need to do is line up my edge here so it covers my zip, and it should be in line with the top stitch I've created. So that lap should sit like that. So it just sits on top, just covers. And I'm actually going to start at the bottom here, right where my opening is, and I'm going to do, one thing you might want to do is mark. You could mark your stitch line if you wanted to. So it'd be straight across there. And then with the fabric in the right position for the lap, it should be about just next to the teeth, about that far from the fold. But what you need to do is just fill. Okay, so I can fill my teeth here, so I'm going to have it not up right against it, but just like 1 or 2 millimeters away. So what I'll do is I'll start by doing my reverse stitch across the bottom there. That's really, oops, sometimes the needle doesn't want to go over those thick parts. That's really important to go back and forth to reinforce that section. You can probably hear that I'm toe tapping. The machine isn't loving that section because it's a little bit thick. Oops. I can see what's happened. I might need to come back and fix that up. We'll see. Anyway, I'm going to put my needle in at the corner and turn. You can see that. I'll come back and show you in a sec. Alright, so then line up your fabric so it just covers that stitch, and then you should be able to stitch. And that foot should be nice and close to the teeth, and as you go along, all you have to do is use this hand and hold it in the correct position. Keeping it nice and flat with your fingers and pulling this nice and taut as well. You may get a couple little tucks like that. We'll see, they might iron out. All right, now I'm almost back up the top. So I'm going to put my needle in, put my presser foot up. I'm going to zip this zipper head out the way. And to keep it even, I'm going to just line up the edge of my overlocking stitch with the edge of the zip there. All the way up, pop my foot down, and then I can stitch the rest of the way. Make sure you do a reverse stitch at the end. So that is my lapped zip. Just trim your threads. And I'll show you what happened down the bottom here in a sec. So there's a teeny tiny tuck there, but that will iron out, no problem. And what happened here is because I wasn't right at the end, it kind of got a little bit caught up around the opening of the zip there. But just make sure you've got it right at the end here. Oops, you can't see that there. So you can see what I did. I'm a little bit too far down. So just check your measurements when you do that. But that is your lapped zip.